So I made the top martial artist argument in a way that no one has a viable counter argument. And the opposition view basically has conceded my point to a ridiculous degree. They're not even trying to present a viable counter argument anymore. So let's look at this idea of good judgment. Outside of the divine order, obviously there can be no good judgment, period. You're basically giving the devil, or the people who believe in evil, the benefit of the doubt while doing their evil bidding. So any dating, any mating, any behavior, any life outside the divine order by default is bad judgment. Let's look at this point of reference, the unrepentant serial killer who's continuing to be evil and rape little kids. Okay. Should a female be able to say, hey, you know what? She has sovereignty. She should be able to see this guy. Should we bust him out of prison so they can have a relationship to help her sovereignty, have sovereignty over her body? Where do we draw the line? Okay. So obviously, if we draw the line correctly, people who disobey the top martial artist should be imprisoned, if not executed. So she won't even have the opportunity. Now, once we remove the most logical structure of society, which is a moral leader, which America and the West pretty much has conceded to a large degree by having a president and one person in charge of most of their countries, and they have some kind of superficial nut house of Congress and Senate and so on, kind of like the Roman Senate. It's a nut house, bunch of crazy white folks, acting like barbarians and they think they're important because they can build buildings or something. It's stupid. So obviously, they don't have a viable counter-argument there, so they pretty much conceded my point to kind of press that and pretend that's ideal is childish and stupid, and I'm sure you all understand that times infinity. So we look at this thing, right? What does it mean to be a good person? A nation is a grouping of evil scum, as we see time and time again, versus the idea of a tribe that's doing the right thing. Even in their Bible, right? The tribe of Judah was tend to be the one doing the right thing. These other guys were bringing them down. Ephraim was said to be jealous of Judah, and so on and so forth. So when we look at good people, right? Good judgment, okay? The idea of who's too good for who, right? If a female rejects the top martial artist, when no one else is even in the divine order or giving him his credit, his right to lead, by default, it is the evil in her that refuses to submit to the good in him. And obviously God is a play on words for good. It's one O away from good, right? And of course, you can achieve God if you're in a good reproductive cycle. The O is the reproductive cycle. I'm sure you can figure out why that is. It's basically a circle. Think about primitive drawings. Think about where language comes from. The Germanic kind of root, as it said in popular culture for English, which eventually became, from Old English to New English. There's basically a transfer rate. Latin, right? The Romans, the Greeks. We're in contact with the Egyptians and the descendants of the Sumerians and so on and so forth. And this is pretty much where their system comes from: symbols, writing. I'm sure you understand why it's a magic spell and it's a global thing, because these systems spread and evolved, if you want to call it that, in different cultures and nations. All right. So obviously, when we look at people saying, hey, they're trying to put their family before God, and their family is obviously in an evil reproductive cycle. All cultures that are allowed are evil. So they're basically telling they're telling the top martial artist, and basically to the messenger of God, if you will, the intermediary, because they're not good enough to see God. Even in their Bible, without holiness, no man will see the Lord. It says something about people who are evil cannot stand in his presence. Okay, and God hates all that are evil. I have it written down somewhere. I'll put it in the comments if I care enough to. So basically, we will look at this, couple that with Isaiah 11:5, Ephesians 6:14, Exodus 3:14 rather, Exodus 15:3. Right? So God is a warrior. He says to Moses, "I am who I am." The belt, the sash, and the buckler are all connected, obviously, and they basically connect to the idea of the martial art belt, which is basically the idea of Ibo, Obi, Ibo, Kuro, black belt. There's many judo, jiu-jitsu, karate, taekwondo, and on and on and on. These guys all have belts because they're trying to mimic and be like and put on a show to pretend to be like the Ibo king and his martial art subordinates, if you will. So righteousness will be his belt, and faithfulness the sash around his waist, the buckler of truth, right? Martial and marital, martial in the order. God says to marshal, it's said to marshal the stars in the Bible. And in Psalms 19, the sun is compared to a champion who can proclaim your mighty acts. And of course, the mighty ones are the warriors, right? And the heroes and the champions. And it goes back to David and Goliath, 1 Samuel 17:43. So you should understand what I'm saying in this thing. Who's too good for who's good looking, estimate, right? Time, mate, they're in the word estimate. We also have intimidate, assimilate, okay, and dominate. So why let evil dominate you? So they're basically